Hi folks, thanks for arriving at this video to watch a bit of printmaking. My name is Jo, I work under the artist name of Strangford, and today we're going to delve into a bit of printmaking. I started printmaking in 2019, and it's worth noting here that I have absolutely no formal training in art since my art GCSE over 20 years ago. So it's definitely a form of creativity that can suit any skill and experience level. Over the last few years, printmaking has created a bit of calm headspace for me and has literally been invaluable in terms of supporting my own mental health. In this short video, we will look at printing fabric patches using some very basic tools. So, this is the equipment that I think you'll need. Here we go. So this is your carving tool. This is what I started with. It's an SD carving tool, and it has interchangeable blades. So, there are others at a similar price point, but because this is the one I started with, I thought it's the one I'd use here today. Each blade that it comes with will give a different mark into the surface. So test them before you use them, and I'll give a few tips along the way as to which blade might work best for which part of the printmaking we're onto. Cool. The cutting surface. If you are printing by hand onto fabric, it's a good idea to use something quite soft. For my larger prints onto paper, I personally use huge pieces of flooring lino in a printing press. But for small prints and for printing onto fabric, I use this stuff. It's called Speedy Carve by a company called Speedball. There are cheaper alternatives. I've tried a few of them. To be honest, I'd avoid them until you've got some good results using this stuff and you've found a technique that works for you. I won't go into the details of why, but some of the cheaper ones, they don't have a completely flat surface, and also they're not quite as soft as this stuff. So it's quite pricey. I resisted using it for a while myself because of that, but it actually works really well. So there you go. I'm a convert now. For ink, we're going to use a large Versacraft ink pad. I've gone for a green one today, but they come in a wide range of colours, so pick the one that you like the look of. The ink stands up really well to washing, and general day-to-day life. We'll come to that at the end. The only thing that I would say is that they work best, especially for fabric, when they're brand new and sort of really inky. And by that I mean they'll give you the most solid and sharp print. So all of these bits of sort of specialist equipment can be bought easily online. Handprinted.co.uk is a good small business to support. We'll have all of these three main items here in stock. Finally, the material. To be honest, anything goes here. Old denim, thick cotton works particularly well. You don't need to go out and buy anything new. You can recycle a piece of old clothing. In general, try not to pick a stretchy material or anything too thin, as these just don't make for good patches. Consider what colour ink will go with the fabrics that you have access to. Today I've got a kind of thickish canvas material. It's quite textured, which can make printing onto it quite tricky, because the ink will transfer onto the raised bits of the texture first, and it can make the print quite patchy. But hopefully we'll be able to get a good result with that today. Other bits that are useful. Some standard unfancy printer paper. I've got some here that we'll be using in a minute. A little bit of tracing paper. I'm going to say that's not essential. A softish pencil, or any pencil. I'm just using sort of a standard HB pencil. And right, let's get started. So, step number 1. The first thing to do, I'm going to kind of contradict myself here, is draw out a simple design onto some paper using a pencil, or you can use a computer or an iPad to create a design, whatever you want. You can see I've gone for something very generic here. The only thing you want to do is make sure it will fit onto your Speedy Carve block. So you've just got to make sure that it will fit onto the block. For your first attempt, I would avoid too much fiddly detail. Keep it bold, and it will give you a clearer final result. So yeah, I've gone for this design because it's quite generic, and hopefully it shouldn't take too long to carve. You can see that I've taken out the sort of holes in the middle of the letters, just to make it a little bit more straightforward as well. You don't have to do that. That's just what I'm doing today. Step number 2. If you've drawn out your original design in pencil, you might not need to do this. But again, tracing it onto some tracing paper can be a chance to neaten up the original sketch. So you trace over the design using your tracing paper, and you pick out the lines that you want to use if you've gone for a sketch. So I'll do that now. Okay, so now you've got your tracing paper, your original design. You can set the original design to one side. If you did your original design on paper with a pencil, this might work without using the tracing paper at all. But what you want to do is take your tracing paper and place it face down onto the Speedy Carve so that the pencil marks down on the Speedy Carve. And you want to sort of get it positioned. And you want to apply pressure over the design, making sure that you go over each line. Now you can kind of check it as you go by peeling back the paper, but try not to shift the paper as you do it. And you should find, as if by magic, there you go. The design is transferred onto the block. So this is the step that really provides a bit of calm focus and can sort of transport you out of a stressful day. It's carving time. There is a safety warning here. The blades are very sharp. Please take care not to slide the carving tool into your fingers. I usually will start out by carving the smallest detail with the narrowest blade I have. Which I think is blade number, let me check because they're all numbered just in case you're using the same one as me. Blade number 1, that's convenient. Remember, anything you carve away will not pick up ink, so will appear as clear or empty space in the final printed design. Anything you don't carve will form the image that picks up the ink and is transferred to the patch. So it's a little bit tricky to show you this, but instead of digging the tool sort of downwards into the block, try and angle it more shallow, sort of going across the surface, and remember to watch those fingers. So I'm going to go around the detail now with my smallest tool. Okay, here we go. Sometimes for curved lines, it can be better to turn the block underneath the tool, if that makes sense. So if I do this circle in the middle, circles are really difficult to get perfect, so don't get too hung up on it if it doesn't quite come out fully circular. But see, I'm turning the block underneath the tool. Gives you a smoother line, even if the circle isn't quite circly enough. That'll do. Cool. So same for all of these petals here. I'm going to be turning the block underneath the tool. Now these bits in the middle are going to be particularly fiddly. So remember what I said, angle the tool so it's sort of shallow going across the block. That stops you from cutting in too deeply. And just don't get too hung up on worrying about making mistakes, because your mistakes are your style. So sometimes you might find you have bits that you've carved out that are sort of almost stuck in. It can be useful to just grab a sharp knife and chop them at one end, and then you should find that they come out a bit more easily. Once you've gone around the detail, you can select a slightly wider or deeper tool to carve out the empty space, sort of between any area that's going to be inked. Take care not to carve away any detail that you want to keep. I've switched from blade number 1 to blade number, I think that's 9 or 6 for now. And then I might move on to a slightly wider one still. So I'm going to sort of scale up. So I'm going to go around the detail again with a slightly wider tool first. Now finally, I'm going to take a more rounded tool. Maybe this one. It's number 4. Well, I think finally. We'll see how we go. We'll probably need to go back onto the very finest tool last off just to go over any detail that we think needs sort of picking out and making sharper. So you can see around here, there's quite a little bit of extra texture. You could spend longer making that all very smooth if you want. I'm not going to today. Some printmakers purposefully keep all of that extra noise kind of in. It will transfer to the paper and it gives it a very sort of homemade, slightly rustic look, which is quite nice, and it's very characteristic of relief printmaking. I'm going to go over it once more with the finest tool, back to tool number 1, blade number 1. And I'm just going to make sure the letters are going to sort of make sense when they're printed, but we're nearly there. Okay, next step, we are ready to do a test print. This is one of the best, or sometimes one of the worst bits of printmaking. It's a fun part nonetheless. You kind of get to see your design for the first time. The first reveal, or it's sometimes called a pull by printmakers, shows you the result of your hours of focus carving. I've got a piece I've been working on for, I don't know, a few weeks now. And the first reveal can sort of really show you, you know, what all your hard work has amounted to. I'm just going to cut this bit off the edge here. 1 second. Okay. Right. Cool. So you can go straight onto fabric, or you can do a test print on paper. I'll go on paper first and we'll see where we're at. So this is just the piece of paper I did my original sort of printed design on. And the best way to do this is to take your ink pad and sort of tap it, applying a little bit of pressure on top of your block. And what this means is that you can see exactly how the ink is transferring. You can also see the areas around the edge, just here, with kind of extra noise. Now you might want to choose to carve them away at that point, but I quite like a bit of mess. So it looks like it's inked up quite nicely. It's sometimes better to stand up for this bit. You take your block and you place it over the page, and then you just want to press down. Here. Now on paper you don't need to press down as hard as on fabric, so we'll go for there you go. So it's actually not too bad. Some of the letters are a little bit shaky. That's sort of the risk of lettering, especially if you go for lettering with very straight lines like I've done. With a little bit more time, you could definitely neaten that up a little bit more. So let's try printing on a patch. Now, printing on fabric is a little bit different. Fabric doesn't take up ink as sort of readily as paper does, and you need to apply a lot more pressure, especially if your fabric is textured like mine is. Mine's quite a textured canvas material. So nice and inky. If you want, you can sort of give the edges a little bit of a wipe. You don't want that to transfer. There you go. I don't know if you can see that. Quite inky. And again, the newer the ink block, the easier it is to get the stamp nice and inky. So it's best to stand up for this, but you want to line up your block, place it down on the fabric. I'm gonna stand up here. And you really, really, really want to press down as hard as you can. Now it can help if you have something sort of big and flat, maybe like a book. you could press it over the top like that and then apply pressure to the whole thing. And then I kind of like to go over the individual parts of the block. And you've got to do all of this without smudging it and without moving the block at all. Right. And this is it then. This is the moment. Let's have a look. There you go. I quite like printing on canvas because it almost gives it a kind of little vintagey feel. If I was going to neaten that up, I'd take the little, you see this little line coming away from that petal, but otherwise I'm pretty happy with that. You can see the little bottom parts of that peace sign there. So you can repeat this process for as many patches as you want. You can use the same carved block to print onto a whole range of things. You can print onto paper. You could make greetings cards. I've got some stickers here. So this is just brown sticker material. And the same process applies. You don't need to get it quite as inky. There you go. So that's a sticker. You can even print onto woods, and on the back of this ink pad it says you can even print onto terracotta. So there's a lot of possibilities just from an afternoon spent carving your block. Now, to set the ink onto the fabric, you must iron it on the high setting or the cotton setting, the hottest setting you can, for 15 seconds. Otherwise it risks sort of running in the wash. What you want to do is put a bit of baking paper between the printed fabric and the iron. And you know, it's a simple process, but you can develop it and adapt it as you get more skilled. I still learn new techniques all the time. The community on Instagram is very supportive, and you'll always find someone on hand to give you tips and inspiration, and to maybe point you in a new direction or give you a new skill. So yeah, I mean, I'd love to see any results that there might be after you guys watching this video. I'm 100% happy to answer any questions you have at any time. My username on Instagram is _Strangford. So just, yeah, send me a message on there. It might take me a little while to get back, but I will get back to you. And yeah, happy carving. For me, carving is the thing that, the carving bit is the bit that sort of really sort of boosts mental health, because you have to focus 100% on it. And then once you've done it, you've got this little block and you can, it's really versatile. You can make lots of different things. So best of luck with that. Can't wait to see what you come up with, and take care.